How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? In this video, we explore over 200 new iOS 13 features. You don't want to miss this. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. 9 to 5 Mac on YouTube is sponsored by MacPaul's Clean My Mac X. Before updating your Mac to a new OS, it's recommended that you back up your Mac first, and cleaning your drive is the first step in preparing the backup. With Clean My Mac X, you'll discover tons of apps that you didn't even know you had. And then you can sort and delete them using filters like App Store apps, unused apps, 32-bit apps, etc. Click the link in the description to visit cleanmymac.com for a free download. So arguably the flagship feature in iOS 13 is dark mode. Dark mode can be enabled from display and brightness, just like this. And dark mode allows you to use your phone in dark environments comfortably. So what you'll notice is that a lot of the interface gets darker, and that makes it so much easier to use when you're in a dimly lit environment. So all the applications are going to be darker, and even third-party apps can join in on the fun. This is a feature that we've been looking forward to for quite some time, and it's finally here in iOS 13. What do you think about dark mode? Let me know. Now, just like the night shift feature found in iOS, you can also schedule dark mode to turn on or off. Simply go into display and brightness, enable the automatic switch, and then you can configure sunset to sunrise or select a custom schedule for light and dark mode to enable at certain times. Now in iOS 13, there are 8 new stock wallpapers. So you have this one here, this green one, and this black one. But remember, there's dark mode. So when you enable dark mode, you're going to get 4 additional dark versions of the same wallpaper. So dark blue, dark green, and this one right here. Now 3D Touch has essentially been replaced by Haptic Touch, which debuted on the iPhone XR. So this allows more devices to use 3D Touch-like gestures, so you get all your quick action shortcuts. You can still peek at links to get a quick preview of that link just simply by tapping and holding like that. So like I said, I think it's a good thing because it opens up this type of interaction to a lot more devices, including the iPad. So even older devices like the iPhone SE that lack the Tactic engine gain access to these shortcuts. Do you remember that horrible volume HUD from previous versions of iOS? You're probably thinking, how could I forget? Well, you're going to be happy because the volume HUD has moved over to the side, so it's less distracting. It even collapses down and you can control it with your finger. And on that same note, the silent mode interface has been relocated to the top like this. So no longer smack in the middle like that volume HUD. Alright, so now some home screen observations. When you do a fresh install, the iTunes store, you're going to notice, is no longer on the first page. It's been demoted to the second page. The podcast app, on the other hand, has been promoted to the first page. The new Find My app replaces the Find My Friends app and the Find My iPhone app. And there's a new Contacts app icon, so you can see the update there. And the Reminders app gets a new icon. It's very subtle, just the little dots have changed color, but it's a change nonetheless. And you're going to notice in iOS 13 that the Shortcuts app is pre-installed. Now you're going to notice new rounded glyph design language throughout the entire iOS 13 interface. You'll notice it here in Safari with the buttons at the bottom. You'll also notice it within the Music app and various other locations around iOS. Now padded table views are also more prominent here in iOS 13. We've seen this before, but they're much more common here with this latest update. And you'll also notice redesigned header buttons throughout the iOS 13 interface. Now the card sheet interface isn't new either, but it's also a lot more prominent in iOS 13, lending you context that you're a level above and you need to get back to the previous level. And another change that you'll find scattered throughout iOS 13 is this new Options ellipsis, which via a tap gives you additional functionality. You also find that the Siri dictation button is in many more of the search fields you find throughout the iOS 13 experience. Now this is a very subtle change, but you'll notice that the AM/PM text on the time is a lot smaller. Personal Hotspot gets some love in iOS 13. There's a new family sharing feature that allows you to share your hotspot with iCloud accounts in family sharing. In the description for traditional personal hotspot functionality has changed a bit. Now it says allow others to join when you enable that. That enables the traditional hotspot with password. And there's new persistent connectivity with personal hotspot in iOS 13. So when you put your device to sleep and when you wake it up, it's still going to be connected to the hotspot. And there's new low data mode functionality. Low data mode is a new feature that helps apps on your phone use less network data. In iOS 13, you can configure the Ask to Join Wi-Fi Networks option even further. So instead of just a single toggle switch, you now have a third option to be notified of available Wi-Fi networks. And you also have a new Auto Join Hotspot option. And this allows your device to automatically discover nearby personal hotspots when there's no Wi-Fi network available. iOS 13 supports WPA3 Wi-Fi security, and I have that available on my Synology router, and I have it enabled. And notice iOS 12 won't connect, but iOS 13 will. Alright, so here are some other really cool features in iOS 13. The ability to connect multiple pairs of AirPods to your iPhone or iPad so two people can enjoy entertainment. New location control settings give the user greater control over their location. There's now an ability to allow location use once. That is really cool. So if you're somewhere you need to allow your location, you don't have to worry about that app continuously using your location. Now here's something amazing. You can now use PlayStation 4 and Xbox One S Bluetooth controllers directly with your iOS device. No hacks, no workarounds, and you can immediately start playing games that support controllers on iOS. New optimized battery charging learns from your usage routine, so it can wait to finish charging past 80% until closer to the time when you pull the phone off the charger. New screen time options include communication limits, so this sets limits based on your contacts. So for instance, during allowed screen time, you can say you can contact everyone or contacts only, and you can allow being added to a group conversation when one of your contacts or a family member is in that group, and you can add those people to contacts. Now during downtime, you can change it so that you only allow communication with specific contacts, and you can add those contacts individually. Now there's also combined app limits, so instead of just adding a limit for a single app, you can combine multiple apps and add a limit for that group of apps. So I'm going to select two applications here, YouTube webpage and Renegade, and then I can change the time. So just set it for a minute, and then tap Add to create a combined app limit. And there's a new 1 more minute feature. So when your time runs out for an application, you can ask for more time just by tapping here and just say 1 more minute if you need to finish something up. This gives you time to say bye to a friend, save a game, export a file, etc. Now, Apple has always taken accessibility seriously, but in iOS 13, it gets a big promotion. So previously, you had to go down into the general section to find accessibility. It wasn't very pretty, there were no icons, but now in iOS 13, accessibility has been promoted right to the root of settings, and there are now icons for every section within accessibility. That's really cool. And what was previously labeled display accommodations is now display and text size within accessibility. This is where you'll find things like auto brightness, for instance. iOS 13 includes a voice control feature that allows you to control virtually every facet of your iOS device with your voice. This is not to be confused with the old pre-Siri voice control. No, this is a super powerful accessibility feature that is amazing. Let me show you a brief demonstration of what I mean. Turn voice control on. Show grid. For example, the grid feature allows you to have 27, precise input, 5, using just your voice, 8. So I can click on this link like that. There's a new cut, copy, and paste mechanism in iOS 13. So a pinch in with 3 fingers will copy, a double pinch in will cut, and a 3-finger pinch out will paste. No more shaking those iPads because there's now new undo and redo gestures. 3-finger swipe to the left will undo, 3-finger swipe to the right will redo. There's also new quick path typing for the quick type keyboard, aka swipe, for the default iOS keyboard, and that means you no longer have to rely on third-party keyboards to get this functionality within iOS because it's built right in. And cursor navigation is so much better in iOS 13. Now you literally just tap and drag your cursor to any place and it's super precise. This is such a nice new addition. And now there's support for scroll bar scrubbing within iOS 13. So you just tap and drag the scroll bar up and down to quickly navigate throughout an application like Safari. And selecting text is super easy. Just simply double tap and drag like this to select text. And you can multi-select by tapping and dragging with 2 fingers. That's awesome. Intelligent selection allows you to easily select addresses, phone numbers with a double tap. Compare that with iOS 12. In iOS 13, there are now 38 new keyboard languages, and those include ones like Albanian. Also, there's Burmese support, there's Nepali support, along with 35 additional keyboard languages. And in iOS 13, a welcome addition, the emoji and globe keys are now separate, so you can switch between multiple languages and still quickly get to all your emojis. And in iOS 13, Memoji stickers are accessible from the keyboard. So that means you can use your Memojis and Animojis within apps like Messages and Mail. And there's good news for iOS users on older hardware. Memoji and Animoji stickers now work on older hardware because they're just stickers. They don't require the true depth camera found on modern hardware. You'll also find a new redesigned markup toolset that sort of harkens back to the pre-iOS 7 days with the skeuomorphism, and it's a welcome change in my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you prefer the flat textures or do you like this style better? Let me know down below in the comments. Now here's something crazy, mouse accessibility support. Now, to be clear, this is an accessibility feature, but you can enable it, and as you can see, it works surprisingly well for navigating throughout iOS. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I don't think this needs to be restricted to accessibility. I think having a mouse on the iPad is super useful. And in iOS 13, you can now install and manage fonts right at the system level. You'll be able to download directly from the App Store. And there's support for full page screenshots. So you just tap full page after taking a screenshot, you can scroll down, view the whole page, and you can even export directly to a PDF just by tapping the share button. Previously, you needed to use a third-party extension to do this, but it's nice to have it built into iOS. You'll find a brand new, completely redesigned share sheet in iOS 13. Now at the top, you find exactly what you're sharing. So in this case, a website with the address and the title of the page. And below that, you'll also find a fully redesigned list of all the actions that you can use. And iOS also provides you share suggestions, very similar to what you would find on an Android phone. This will suggest that you share via AirDrop or via messages or other means. And AirDrop gets some love in iOS 13. First, you're going to see a new badge that shows you how many AirDrop contacts are around you, and then you get a full standalone AirDrop page when you tap the AirDrop icon. Alright, so let's talk Control Center. If you haptic touch on brightness, you'll see the dark mode toggle, and this allows you to turn on dark mode from anywhere. And now in iOS 13, you can switch to specific Wi-Fi networks by haptic touching on the Wi-Fi button in Control Center. That is so nice. And you can do the same thing with Bluetooth as well. Haptic touch on Bluetooth, there you go. Now in the volume adjustment in Control Center, you will see a new icon to represent what you're controlling right there, so iPhone in this case. And you'll find larger glyphs. For instance, this glyph for the flashlight is larger in iOS 13 when compared to iOS 12. And now in the media controls, you'll find that speakers and TVs now have their own separate section. Very nice. And there's a larger hearing icon. Notice iOS 13 versus iOS 12. And when you haptic touch on hearing, you'll see a more rounded design on iOS 13. So here's iOS 12 versus iOS 13. And there's a slightly tweaked magnifier interface. So we open up the magnifier and you can see the little slider is a little bit different there. And there's some other subtle changes as well. You'll find new glyphs when haptic touching on the voice memos toggle in Control Center. And there's a new QR code reader icon to go with the advanced QR code reader, which has been optimized especially for China. I'm going to open that up. So now you see the difference here. This is more like the standard camera interface. This is more customized for QR code reading, even has that little flashlight toggle. iOS 13 features a slightly redesigned widget interface that gives it a cleaner look when compared to iOS 12. And now the Show More buttons are now basic disclosure triangles in iOS 13. Siri sounds better in iOS 13 thanks to advanced neural text-to-speech.
Who won the Raptors game?
So here's iOS 12.
The Raptors beat the Warriors in Game 3 of the NBA Finals by a score of 123-109 yesterday.
Who won the Raptors game?
And here's iOS 13.
Toronto beat Golden State in Game 3 of the NBA Finals by a score of 123 to 109 yesterday.
iOS 13 is a huge improvement for users in India. And one such improvement is a new Indian English accent for Siri. So I'm going to enable that. It'll download. Now listen. Who won the Raptors game?
The Raptors overcame the Warriors in Game 3 of the NBA Finals by a score of 123 to 109 yesterday.
Super cool. Shout out to all my Indian viewers. All right, so now let's talk about some of the stock apps. Starting with the phone app, you're going to notice a modified phone glyph with a darker green on the keypad tab. And you'll also notice that the Contacts tab on iOS 13 has been updated with the new Contacts app icon. The phone app's in-call screen has been updated in iOS 13 with larger icons, updated glyphs, and other subtle changes throughout the interface. For instance, you'll see the contact photo is now the background in iOS 13. It's been removed from that little avatar location right here in iOS 12, and also the name is centered. And iOS 13 includes a welcome new feature, silencing unknown callers. So when an unknown caller calls, they'll be silenced if this toggle is enabled. Leave a voicemail. Safari gets lots of love in iOS 13, starting with the updated start page. The updated page includes a brand new heading, a new show more and show less button, larger updated favicons, and more. Now, one of the coolest new features is the Siri suggested website links. So when you go to a specific page, Siri will automatically present links to popular subpages within that website. So here with Apple, I can go directly to the watch page, or with ESPN, I can go directly to their NBA page just with a tap. This is a super convenient new feature. Based on your usage of apps like Messages, Mail, and News, Siri will present website suggestions right there on the start page as well. Now this, folks, is huge. A built-in download manager? What? Did you ever think you'd see that within iOS? I didn't, but we have it now. Built-in download manager, so I can download an IPSW file right there to my iPhone. That is such a welcome new feature. So if you tap on the little magnifier glass, it'll take you directly to the downloads folder within the Files app. So in this case, I have it configured to download to iCloud Drive. And then of course you can manage the download directly from the download interface, so you can stop it and swipe like this to delete. Safari includes a new page zoom feature in the upper left hand corner. You can zoom in up to 300% to really get up close and personal with your web content, just like this. Now of course you can easily zoom back out. Simply tap the percentage like that to zoom back out to 100%, and you can zoom out even further if you want to. Underneath the zoom settings, you'll see the new website view menu for invoking reader view. You can do everything you can normally do with the reader view in there. So adjust text size, adjust background, etc. You can also hide the toolbar, and if possible, depending on the site you're on, request the desktop version of the site. And this also allows you to quickly access per site settings. So you can make it so that specific sites always request the desktop website, or a specific site always uses reader mode, and you can change permissions on a per site basis. Here's another really cool iOS 13 feature. Notice I have all these tabs open. Watch what happens when I long press on the bookmarks button. I can now add bookmarks for those tabs. So just press that button, and now it will save all those tabs to a brand new folder, and that will allow me to access those tabs later. So now you can see Save Tabs right here. And iOS 13 allows you to open all tabs in a folder. So long press, select Open in New Tabs, and now they're all open and they slowly come to life one by one. That's a really cool feature. iOS 13 lets you jump to an open tab via Smart Search. So I search for WWDC and Safari finds an open related tab. Safari also allows you to download a linked file using haptic touch. So now just open up the download manager, tap on the file, and that opens right in the Files app. So in this case, I directly downloaded an HTML file from 9to5Mac. When uploading photos with Safari and iOS 13, you can now change the photo upload size. So you're going to have several options. You'll have actual size, but if you tap here, you'll see large, medium, and small as well. So I'll choose small. Now that dark mode is a reality, it would be hard to tell when you're in private mode on iOS 13 when compared to iOS 12. So now there's a big block of text at the top of the interface when in private mode. So now let's talk about some of the Safari settings in the Settings app. So you have Downloads, and this allows you to choose where your files are downloaded. You can choose iCloud Drive, your local device, or other storage. You can also choose when to remove download list items. You'll find a new tab section in Safari Preferences as well. And most of the settings under here are settings you've found elsewhere in iOS 12, but there is a new Close Tabs option to configure automatically closing tabs. And there's also settings for websites. So you saw this earlier with the per website settings. Here is the full list for all of your configured websites. You can find them here. So this allows you to change your Zoom, desktop, website, reader, and various other permissions. All right, so now let's talk about messages. First of all, you can share your name and photo to fellow iMessage contacts. This is really cool. So once you send a message, it's going to say, hey, do you want to share your name and photo with this person? And you can say share or close it out. Now, if you tap share, you'll venture through a brief setup. So choose your name and photo. There's my name. You could choose different avatars. You could even choose an emoji or memoji. Now, if you double tap on the name in the to field, you can access additional contact methods related to that particular contact. There's also 3 new Animoji: a mouse, octopus, and cow. Okay, moving along. You're gonna find tons of new memoji customizations in iOS 13. There's blush, freckles, all sorts of new hairstyles, piercings, different eyelashes and stuff. You can even go into the ears section and configure AirPods for your memoji character. Now, I kind of spoiled this earlier, but of course you can use Animoji and memoji stickers within the Messages app. There's actually a dedicated tab for that. And what you'll notice is that you'll find the same expressions across all of the sticker types. So for instance, the panda is going to have the same expressions as the rooster or whatever that is, the chicken or the mouse. So you can drag a sticker and place it on a message, or you just tap the sticker to send it like that. When you have your AirPods connected to an iOS 13 device, Siri will read incoming messages as they arrive, and you can respond to a message simply by speaking back. Now let's go to the settings for messages. You're going to notice that the send and receive section has been moved up. It used to be down here in iOS 12. Now it's moved up right below the iMessage switch toggle. And as we mentioned earlier, you can access the share name and photo settings for the Messages app directly in Messages preferences. So here you can see my avatar. I can toggle on share name and photo and adjust share settings. The Music app gets a nice update in iOS 13. There's now a redesigned Now Playing interface. It looks much cleaner, and I really like the left justified track title and artist name. Now, lyrics got a lot more useful in iOS 13's Music app. Now you have time-synced lyrics. So as the song plays, you'll see the lyrics play along with it. And as you can see, it scrolls automatically and it highlights the current line being sung in the song. So the really cool thing though is that you can kind of skip ahead and sort of tap around the lyrics and it will sync up right where the lyrics are, just like that. You can easily view the up next cue by simply tapping the cue button in the bottom right hand corner. And here you can rearrange the order of the songs, you can enable shuffle mode or repeat mode, and all that's just a simple button press away. Now you'll also notice a slightly modified AirPlay button in iOS 13 when compared to iOS 12, and you'll also notice a smaller volume button on iOS 13 when compared to iOS 12. And there's a brand new options menu, so if you tap that, you'll have all of your options related to your music. So you can create a station, view the lyrics, add to playlist, etc. And notice here in the settings, iCloud Music Library has been renamed to Sync Library. So a little bit simpler in iOS 13. In the Calendar app, you'll notice some slightly larger glyphs in the upper right-hand corner when compared to iOS 12. And you'll also find the new ability to add attachments to events. Now let's talk about perhaps the most exciting app to receive an update in iOS 13, the Photos app. Starting with the Photos tab, inside the Photos app, there's the new Days section. You have months, and then you have years, so you can quickly adjust your view based on what you're looking for, so you can choose all photos if you want to. And the cool thing about Days is that It really does highlight the important photos there, or at least it tries to. Some of the importance of some of those photos are a little questionable, but nonetheless, it does try, and it's a really nice layout, and it orders it chronologically so you can see all your days. Now, all photos is nice because that allows you to view all the photos that you've taken, and you can actually zoom in on that and make it a little less dense, or make it even more dense by zooming all the way out. So the Photos tab is really a great way to get a very high level or low level overview of your photos. Now you'll notice that videos and live photos automatically play back in iOS 13's Photos app, and it looks great. It makes it feel so much more alive. Now, of course, you can go into settings and change the behavior of auto playback, so you can turn that off if you don't like it. But I personally love it. Now the Today tab will automatically hide duplicate photos or photos that it feels are less relevant, but you can easily view them with a tap. Now when compared with iOS 12, you're going to notice a completely redesigned editing interface in the Photos app. Now in previous versions of iOS, of course, you could add filters to your photos in edit mode, but now in iOS 13, you can actually change the intensity of these filters. So yes, you can change how much of the filter affects the photo. In iOS 12, it was all or nothing. Now you can be granular with it. And I can't believe that this feature was never there in previous versions of iOS, but now in iOS 13, you can actually pinch to zoom while you're editing. Previous versions, you weren't able to do that. Now you can get up close and personal and see those details as you edit. Now in iOS 13, you'll notice that the options button for interacting with third-party extensions and markup has been relocated to the upper right-hand corner in iOS 13. And you'll also notice that the auto enhance option is now integrated within the main editor. Previously, it was by itself on an island, but now it's fully integrated into the main editing experience. The new vibrance enhancement allows you to boost muted colors without affecting skin tones. And you can fine-tune white balance by adjusting the warmth and tint options within iOS 13. This is a great addition for photo editors. Sharpen allows you to make edges in your photos more crisp and better refined. And the new definition tool allows you to adjust image clarity on the fly within iOS 13's Photos app. And the new noise reduction tool allows you to reduce or eliminate graininess and speckles within your photos in iOS 13. And Vignette adds shading to the edges of your photos to make your subjects stand out. Now the really cool thing about these effects is that you can review them individually, so you can turn them on or off simply by tapping them, and you can see what effect they actually have on your photo. So here with Brilliance, I could turn it all the way up, turn it off, turn it back on, quickly toggle them just like that. Now iOS 13's powerful new video editor is, in my opinion, the most impressive thing about this update. In previous versions of iOS, the only thing you could really do was trim a video, as you can see right here. And that was a destructive process that required you to save a new clip. With iOS 13, they have really just completely blown the doors off the video editing process in the Photos app. It's amazing. Now, of course, you can trim your videos like this, but it goes so much further than that in iOS 13. So, of course, you can turn your sound on or mute your sound. But the really cool thing is that you can go into the editing interface just like a photo and change these values just like you did with photos. So you can change exposure right there for video. You can zoom into that video, change your exposure, get it just right, dial it in just how you want it. You can do that for all the effects. So highlights the same way. Get it all dialed in. Get your shadows dialed in. I mean, this is almost like, this is some pro level stuff right here that you're able to do with the stock Photos app. Apple isn't playing around when it comes to editing videos. This is amazing. Honestly, it really is. So you can go in, change any of these effects, add some vignette if you want to, really make it pop. And like I said, everything you could do when editing a photo, you can basically do here when editing a video. It's crazy. But not just that, you can go in, add filters if you want to. And just like in the photos editing, you can adjust the intensity of those individual filters as well. You see what I'm getting at here? You see why this is so powerful? It's kind of crazy. It kind of blew my mind the first time I tried it, but this really blew my mind. You have a full assortment of adjust tools. So you can go in, you can rotate just like that. and it keeps the same aspect ratio. It's crazy, right? I know you're probably like, wow, this is nuts. And of course, you can play back and sort of scrub through the timeline while you're making these edits. Let's go back here. And let me show you this. So you can change vertical, horizontal tilt. Not just that though, you can actually flip the canvas just like that. And you can rotate as well, change the aspect ratio, and sort of just scrub through there, see how your footage is looking. Rotate it all the way around. You can change the aspect ratio outright here. So you have your original, you have freeform, square, 16:9, 10:8, 7:5, 4:3, 5:3, 3:2, and you can also switch between portrait and landscape right there. Keep that same aspect ratio, basically just makes it inverted, the aspect ratio. This is, I'm telling you, this right here is nuts. This is like a third-party editor that's been integrated directly into the Photos app. What's really crazy, as you can see there, I just tapped done, it's saving all of this non-destructively. Yes, video edits are non-destructive. So what does that mean? Well, that means I can go back, I can undo all these changes if I wanted to, or I can go in and just change one of the changes and sort of edit it and make it just right. Say something wasn't right. Of course, I can tap and hold like that to see the original, but I can go back into the crop tool or to the adjustment tool, reset it, and resave it. I'm telling you folks, this right here is where it's at. Now, although it doesn't appear to be active now, iOS 13 will eventually add a high-key mono portrait mode feature and portrait lighting control, which will allow you to adjust lighting intensity. And you get some new options when sharing photos. You can share as an individual item or an iCloud link and toggle on full original capture. And when searching for photos in iOS 13, you can combine multiple search terms to find exactly what you're looking for. The camera app has a slightly updated zoom button in iOS 13 when compared to iOS 12. Now let's talk about Mail. When you open up the Mail app, the search box is immediately displayed. You don't have to swipe down to view it. There's also a larger subject heading in the Compose view. Pretty nice looking. And there's a new send glyph icon in the upper right hand corner. And you have updated action buttons for more, flagged, and archive. And there's more options when performing a haptic touch when compared to an old 3D touch on iOS 12. There's new text formatting tools, so you can make your emails look professional. And there's a new toolbar for inserting photos, drawings, scans, and documents. You can do that all from Mail. And there's an extended reply menu that gives you a whole lot of options right at your fingertips. And there's support for multicolored flags that sync across all of your iCloud devices. Now in the Settings app for Mail, you'll notice new options under the threading heading. That was hard to say. So in iOS 13, you'll find a muted thread action section, ignore blocked senders, and blocked. And one last setting, you can now include attachments with replies if you choose to. The Clock app gets a nice visual update for iOS 13. There's now larger header text in the upper left-hand corner. And you'll find a new splash screen and setup for bedtime, along with a slightly adjusted bedtime tab. Sort of breaks out the app into two different sections. They're under bedtime now. And a larger stopwatch without a header at the top. See, there's no stopwatch heading at the top of this, but that's not what I'm really talking about. Notice here, you get a much larger stopwatch analog timer than you do with iOS 12. But this is really cool. There's an updated timer interface with a new circle that gives you a nice visual indication of how much time is left. That's really cool. Now in iOS 13, the Maps app has been rebuilt from the ground up. It's not completely rebuilt for all locations yet, but Apple is working on rolling that out as soon as possible. But besides that, the headline feature for Maps in iOS 13 is Look Around, which is sort of like Street View for Apple Maps, and it's really, really good from what I've explored so far. It's really smooth when you're going down the street, you're adjusting like that. When you're spinning around, the photo quality is very high quality, and you can make it full screen like that. You can spin around. There we go, just go down the street, And for points of interest, you can just tap on them and that will view right there, give you a nice view of that storefront. You can zoom in a little bit. I'm impressed by what I've seen so far. And what I really like about it is that you can kind of move around this little map view and see where you're oriented. And then the look around will update eventually. Once I stop moving around, the look around will update there at the top to represent where you are on the map. So you can just keep going down. Let's get down to Fisherman's Wharf here in San Francisco. Now look around isn't available everywhere just yet. Obviously it's going to be available on the West Coast first. But as you can see there, very promising new feature in iOS 13. Browse Nearby has been updated for iOS 13. Here's how it looked in iOS 12. Definitely think I prefer the iOS 13 version. Just easier to read and get to what you want. Now there's also redesigned favorites. So you can go in. I'm going to look for Coit Tower. I'm going to add that as a favorite. Just tap the plus button. And now I can choose what type of favorite it is. And then once I'm done, I simply tap done. All right, so now it appears in my favorites right there from an easily accessible place in Maps. Super simple, super easy. Now collections is really cool. You can build collections of favorite places and share those collections. So I'm going to call this Stuff to See, and we're just going to add some stuff to it. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see, add Columbus Tower. So we'll just tap add. All right, so that's the first item in my Stuff to See collection. Now let's add another. You can just tap the plus in the collection itself and search, and we're going to add Fisherman's Wharf. So now I have 2 items in my collection, but what's really cool is I can swipe on it and share it with a friend. So if I want to recommend some places to go, I can do it with ease. Now the Reminders app has been updated. It is completely rebuilt. As you can see here, it looks completely different from the previous Reminders app, and it is so much better. So when adding reminders, you'll find a quick toolbar to add times, dates, and locations. So there's your time, tap that, you can quickly insert a time, insert a location, flag it, insert images, whatever the case may be, you can do so. Now at the top of the Reminders app, you'll see your smart list, which will automatically organize by today, by scheduled, by flagged, or you can just view them all. And you can also add an attachment to a reminder. So I'm going to do so right now. Scroll down and then add an image. Just tap add image and then choose take photo, scan document, or photo library. And there's also natural language input / Siri intelligence. So I could say start iPadOS review Friday, and then it automatically gives me a date and I just tap that to put it in. And then there's messages integration. So if I open up the inspector, I can toggle this option, remind me when messaging, put in my contact, and whenever I'm messaging Jeff Benjamin, it's going to remind me, hey, you got something to tell him. So I'm going to put, hey, there, send, and then I get that notification. Because you're messaging Jeff Benjamin, remind him about the iOS 13 review. And then in settings, you'll find the today notification toggle. So after the time you set here is when the notifications will begin to appear for items located in the today tab. So now when I open up Notification Center, you can see due today with my reminder. And one last setting to consider, you can show reminders as overdue. You can toggle that on or off so there's no pressure on your end. The iOS 13 Notes app has a brand new gallery view. Let me show you that. So if you swipe down and you tap the little gallery button, that enables the gallery view. There's also support for shared folders within the iOS 13 Notes app. So I'm going to go ahead and add people, and now I can share. There's also view-only collaboration, so I can enable view-only when sharing. The stocks text in the upper left-hand corner is no longer in all caps on iOS 13. There's an edit button on the main interface now for editing all of your available stocks. And there's a lot of smaller redesigned interface elements within the iOS 13 Stocks app when compared to iOS 12 if you look closely. The Books app for iOS 13 gets new reading goals. So here we go. So right now I have a 5-minute goal set to read 5 minutes each day. I should probably increase that. And you'll find a new notification panel on the account page related to your reading goals. So let's go to notifications, and there we go, reading goals turned on. And in the settings app for books, there's a reading goals switch, and there's also a clear reading goals data button. And there's also external controls, just like podcast, for audiobooks. The App Store has moved its app updates inside the account page. So you have to open that up to view all of your updates. So there's one for Slack, and I can expand it just like that. Now, the App Store also allows you to bypass cellular download limits on iOS 13. Finally! So you can just force the download here whenever you get this pop-up, or say later on Wi-Fi if you wish. But you could take it one step further. You can go into the Settings app for the App Store and outright change the behavior. So go to App Downloads here. Right now it's asking if over 200 megabytes, but we're going to just say always allow. Like that. So now when I initiate a download over cellular, no matter how big the file is, it's just going to start downloading. Just like that. Beautiful. Now I mentioned that the Updates tab is gone. That's because it's been replaced by the Apple Arcade tab, which isn't even live yet, but Apple's really wanting to promote this upcoming subscription service. And then there's default search text. So notice here in iOS 13 compared to iOS 12, you have a lot more verbose information there. And you're going to notice Apple Watch search results right there with the Apple Watch glyph, which is really nice. And the subscriptions panel has been placed higher in the account settings when compared to iOS 13. The Health app gets a new dynamic summary view on the main page, which is really nice, gives you lots of data. It looks much better than iOS 12's version. And for the very first time in the Health app, there's a whole section dedicated to menstrual cycle tracking. And there's a new highlights section, which gives you even more data, a nice visual overview, sort of motivates you to continue going, staying healthy and active. And in case you didn't notice already, there is a dedicated search and browse page within the iOS 13 Health app, and there's toothbrushing support. There's also a new profile page that's been redesigned, which you can find by tapping on the profile button. And you'll find in the Settings app a brand new Health settings panel. The Home app for iOS 13 gets brand new refreshed Home app accessory controls, and as you can see, they look fantastic. So there was a lock, here is my thermostat, and here's a light switch, or I guess a light. Here's another light. These are hue lights. All right, there's also AirPlay 2 speakers in scenes and automation. So eventually, I wasn't able to get it working just yet, but I was able to go through and get it all set up at least. You're going to be able to make speakers respond to automation. So say at a certain time, I want the speaker to play this particular song, and it'll do it. I'm assuming you're going to have to update your HomePod first before it'll actually work though. But this is really, really nice. And you'll also find Siri shortcuts under the advanced section, and you can add those to your automation. So this is crazy, the amount of potential this has. I'm so excited to see what people come up with Siri shortcuts and Home app integration. And there's a new hubs and bridge section in the Home app preferences. So you'll find all your bridges and your hubs there. And now the Files app got a huge update, especially on the iPad, but also on the iPhone as well. Now you can access metadata for all of your files. You tap Show More, get even more metadata. This is so nice to have, makes it much more Mac-like, so you're not totally in the dark about what your files contain or what they are. And then there's external USB drive and SD card support, and that integrates directly within the Files app. Talk about finally we have support for external drives. And then you can also create folders on the local drive and add files to those folders. So that is something new as well. Previously, you couldn't actually save a folder to your local storage, but with iOS 13, you can. You can also connect to a file server that uses SMB, and there's a downloads folder, which I showed you earlier with Safari downloads. So you can go in there and access that. And there's iCloud Drive folder sharing. So you can share the entire contents of an iCloud Drive folder to anyone. So you can say only people you invite, anyone with the link can make changes or not make changes. And then there's zip and unzip support, so you can compress files and decompress them with a couple of taps, just like that. And there's a document scanner built right into the Files app, so you can scan apps and they will save directly to files. And the new Find My app, which replaces Find My iPhone and Find My Friends, allows you to both find your iPhone and find your friends. Not very surprising there, but it works very well from my experience. And a new offline finding feature allows your devices to be found even when not connected to cellular or Wi-Fi, and it does this via a crowdsourced Bluetooth method. Really slick. Now, as mentioned, Shortcuts is a pre-installed app now, and it comes with a redesigned look. Here's the iOS 12 version on the right side, and here's the new iOS 13 version right here. You'll also notice a new automation tab in the Shortcuts app that works with HomeKit. You'll find loads of new relationship labels in the Contacts app in iOS 13. We're going to scroll down here, go to all labels, and look at all these different labels. I'm sure there's no relationship on earth that you can't find in this list. It's crazy. And the iOS 13 Contacts app allows you to create Memoji right inside of it. So if I just add a photo, now I can create a Memoji. I can add the ones that already exist, of course. So I'm going to choose that one. Gives me a nice background, or I can add one, or I can select one of the existing Animoji stickers as well. You'll notice that the search option at the bottom of the Watch app for iOS 13 has been removed. There it is on iOS 12. And since the Apple Watch gets its own standalone app store with watchOS 6, the App Store button will tell you as much, as you can see there. And just like on the iOS Settings app, the Watch Settings app promotes accessibility to the root section of the app. Voice memos on iOS 13 gets a new splash screen. And one of the cool features is that you can now pinch to zoom when editing your voice memos. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been a look at over 200 new iOS 13 features. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, make sure you subscribe and like this video if you appreciated it. And extra special thanks to our sponsor. 9to5Mac on YouTube is sponsored by Clean My Mac X. Before updating your Mac, use the new Space Lens feature to build an interactive visual map of your storage. That'll help you quickly find the biggest space wasters in the form of space bubbles. That's just one way that Clean My Mac X can help you prepare to upgrade to a new OS. Click the link in the description to visit cleanmymac.com for a free download.